Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today we got the 4th sneak peek for the May update, which confirms which character is going to be getting a tier 3 for this update, and it is none other than Proxima Midnight, the first universal female villain tier 3, and originally the first native tier 2 character to be introduced in Marvel Future Fight, along with Cull Obsidian, at the time Black Dwarf, and Corvus Glaive, and also the very first World Boss Ultimate to be introduced with tier 3 when the tier 3 system was introduced back in May of 2018. So tons of firsts for Proxima, and well deserved. So let's dive into this and see all the information. This alien warrior with unbeatable fighting abilities is also ready for battle. Prepare yourself to try and stop the even more threatening point of her spear, the new power of Proxima Midnight. And then they say here, there is a hint of what power she now possesses, so please check it out. So they actually want us to go over to Twitter, which we will now do to see what is going on with the rest of the sneak peek. So here we go. Knowing only a life of war and attrition, Proxima Midnight joins her fellow members of the Black Order with a devastating new skill to dominate the battlefield. Oh yes, and if we go over to the sneak peek itself, we can see the the familiar planet. We see Proxima, then we get a couple of glimpses at something, and then we get the final glimpse at the end. So we're gonna break this sneak peek. Actually, you know what? Let's watch the sneak peek one more time. The sneak peek team at it again, batting 1,000, just completely crushing it, or batting 100, whatever you call it, 100 or 1,000. They're Barry Bondsing it, basically. They're Barry Bondsing this bad boy, and they're crushing it. So here we go. We get to see the planet, then we get to see Proxima, and as you will notice, there's these extra lines that show up right over here next to her antlers. And they will, boom, and like this weird shape, this weird position that we're used to seeing. That's a T, those are 3 lines, that's T3. So they cleverly hide it in the sort of intro for the character. She looks amazing in this new outfit, this new suit. And then we cut to a glimpse of her ability, her ultimate skill, I think. And then that looks so cool. She's just diving at you. If you don't know, by the way, Proxima, super strong alien, on top of having, you know, super speed, super strength, agility, endurance, stamina. She was built a weapon, a spear, by Thanos. The spear was made out of a dying sun that was simultaneously like a sun and a black hole and like something else. So it was experiencing this like crazy singularity, and Thanos turned that into this crazy spear for her. And Proxima can actually use the spear in 2 different ways. So it'll be very interesting to see if they illustrate this with her skills. The spear, I read the Wikipedia page on Twitch last night, tonight. So that's why my knowledge of Proxima's spear abilities is sharper than usual. Anyways, the spear can either be used thrown as a homing device, which will basically never miss its target. So she essentially has Hawkeye and Bullseye's never gonna miss strategy, effect, whatever power built into the spear. Or if she doesn't want to do a homing missile type spear thing, she also has this like poison that the spear can use that basically will just kill any target as long as it pierces them in like 10 minutes. Or if she doesn't want to do either of those, the spear can like create the mass or have the mass of a star, and it can become so heavy and so dense that it's basically immovable. So if she hits you with it, you're not moving. And there's one comic run, I think it's in 2000, I think it was the 2018 Infinity War. Anyways, there's one Infinity Conflict event. I think it was when they attacked, I think it was when they were looking for Thane, and Proxima lands somewhere and she's attacked by like Luke Cage and Hulk and these other guys, and Wolverine gets into entanglement with he fights with Corvus. Anyways, Proxima hits Hulk with the spear, and he straight up can't move. And he stays there for so long that he actually reverts back to Bruce Banner, because she just pinned him there for so long with the spear. So if you don't think she's a certified badass, you're 100% wrong. She is super strong and super duper cool. However, if we needed any more indication that she is the tier 3, Danny Koo came to the rescue and hit us with this very subtle tweet. Proxima Midnight is back. Speaking of that, she has new skills, and of course I emphasize the t and the ew because that's T3. So yeah, T3, there you go. Tier 3 for Proxima Midnight. I think it's really cool. Like I said when I was introducing the character, Proxima was the very first native Tier 2 to come to the game, along with Cull Obsidian, Black Dwarf, and Corvus Glaive. I still remember that day when you could collect Proxima bios, and actually that content ended up being so difficult back in 2016 that the devs gave everyone 10 biometrics of Proxima for free to unlock 10 or 20 biometrics to unlock her for free. So that was really cool, and I'll talk about why that might actually be important heading forward. But on top of being the original native Tier 2, she was the very first World Boss Ultimate when the new system that we now know and love was first implemented, right? Way back in 2018 when Infinity War came out, she was the very first boss to get a World Boss Ultimate difficulty because Captain America was the very first character to get Tier 3, and so you needed to use Combat Titan books, or Combat Titan books. You had to use Titan books, yeah, whatever. So you get what I'm saying. So she was the, very first of so many things, and of course now she's going to be the very first universal villain female Tier 3. Not the first universal villain Tier 3. We've got a lot of those. We got a lot of universal villain Tier 3s, but the very first universal female villain Tier 3, and she might actually be the first female villain Tier 3. Now that I think about it as well, yeah, I think she's the very first female villain Tier 3. So a lot of firsts for Proxima. Now, going back to Proxima being the chosen one here, and if you take a look at the end of the sneak peek, you will see the flash where we see the first look at Ebony's... Oh, whoops, I made a mistake here. The first look at Ebony's new uniform. You can see here he's got that sort of fancy, like, I'm the speaker kind of thing look going on here. And we see Corvus down here in the corner, so we get a better look of where everyone's positioned. I believe this is Supergiant's Supergiants. So yeah, now why I want to talk about Proxima really quickly. Why is the Tier 3 Proxima, and why is it not Corvus or Ebony or somebody else? Because they're also really strong, sure. But like I said, Proxima is the first. She's not the first character in the game, but she was the first for a lot of different things, and she is the first when it comes to being the universal female villain. No, sure, they could have given it to Supergiant, but Supergiant is getting a first World Boss Ultimate, so it'd be a bit weird to give her World Boss Ultimate and to give her a Tier 3 all at once, because from the perspective of the developers, think about it this way. A lot of players coming into the game now, even for the last 2 or 3 years, have probably not gotten Supergiant. They've probably avoided getting Supergiant. So if they were to give the Tier 3 to Supergiant, it would create this discomfort where the players are like, well, now I gotta play Supergiant, I gotta get her bios, I gotta unlock her, I gotta rank her up, yada yada yada. On top of the fact that for those of us that have ranked up Supergiant, we still have to go through the process of potential. One really good thing about giving the Tier 3 to Proxima instead is we don't have to worry about potential, so we don't have that headache of rolling the dice every day. They sort of fixed it with the last update by doubling the amount of potential that we get, but still, it can be a little bit of a headache. It can still take you up to like 11 or 12 days. I believe 13 days actually is the maximum it can take you if you roll at the minimum every single day for a native Tier 2. So they're getting rid of all that, right? And of course, although some of you guys might have wanted to see one of these three being the Tier 3, I prefer a female Tier 3. We actually don't have that many female Tier 3, so it's nice to see a little bit more balance. It's nice to see a little bit more variety. Universal, female, and villain is a very rare category to be in. There's very, very few good universal female villains. I mean, for not that long ago, we were using for the longest time Victorious. She only has 4 skills, man. So we're about to get a universal female villain with 6 skills. And again, going back to the developers, this sort of feels like a love letter to the game because of how much the game has turned around in the last 6 months. I gotta say, it feels like the game is going through a renaissance of just amazing update after amazing update after excellent decision after excellent decision. And so it sort of feels like how the game felt years ago when it was still in its prime, crushing it and really thriving and growing, and building up to the era when we got the first mutants. And I'm starting to get emotional, but you sort of get what I'm saying. So giving this to Proxima sort of feels like a throwback to the glory days of MFF. I think now is the best time. I think now is the glory days of MFF, but you sort of know what I'm saying chronologically speaking. And like I said, it harkens back to the original World Boss content that was introduced, which basically led us to where we are today. Because I really think whoever it was that designed that original World Boss content in 2016, sure, it scared a lot of players and it pushed a lot of players away because it was too difficult, but it really allowed the game to pave the way for its own future. and to sort of figure out and get its legs underneath it. And, you know, this is the kind of game that I want to be. This is the kind of content that we want to focus on. And this is the sort of experience that we want to bring to the players that they're really going to enjoy and that we can really refine and make wonderful. And we see that now with World Boss Legend, Null, and Mephisto, how they've done such a fantastic job of just refining this idea of a rotating daily boss into this super fun, super compact fight that you can do 5 times a day on the same boss, on 5 different bosses, etc. So yeah, I'm really happy with with Proxima being the tier 3. I think it's awesome. A couple more things that I want to talk about here. One, I want to give a big shout out to Eurovision Nathan, or Eurovisio Nathan. That's Beyonce Knowles. I don't think this is Beyonce. Anyways, they went ahead and put together this really cool restructuring. Now the sizing isn't quite right because obviously Corvus is not 2 feet tall and Cull Obsidian is not, well, Cull Obsidian might be 20 feet tall, but Corvus is not that much shorter than him. So the sizing is off because the way that the sneak peeks work is they're not giving you the exact size, right? It's not to scale. These little snapshots that we're getting is not to scale. It's sort of, some of them are zoomed in, some of them are not zoomed in, but this gives you a really good indication of where everyone lies and where everyone is standing in relationship to one another in whatever this final image is going to be. Hopefully we'll see this final image soon because I think it looks beautiful. And maybe, who knows, there's someone else hiding here. Obviously, Ebony is going to be the next one revealed. His head would fit right here. So presumably, if this is correct, and I don't see why it wouldn't be correct, we will see Cull Obsidian's elbow and arm behind Ebony when he's standing in his sneak peek. And I wonder, what will Ebony's sneak peek hold? So yeah, that is all I have to say about the sneak peek and all that stuff. Big shout out to everybody that stitched this stuff together to show me. The last thing I want to talk about here is another first. It is the first of the last for the Shield Lab Antimatter Booster Sale notice, but I think that this means more than it's leading on. So essentially, if you guys don't know, in the Shield Lab, there is, you go over to the Shield Lab here, there is this thing right here, the Antimatter Generator, and you can click this up to every 6 hours, and you can collect antimatter, and the antimatter goes down there, and you can have a maximum of 672,000 antimatter, and that's when you level up your antimatter generator to max, whatever, and you actually need to use antimatter to rank up the generator, and then you use the antimatter for everything else in the Shield Lab. So you use it for actually, you don't use it for the item shop, you use it to rank up the item shop, but in the item shop you spend gold and crystals, and then you use it in the processor. So like everything in the processor that you want to use is going to use antimatter, whether you're doing bios or cards or whatever. It's very popular for cards and bios. I've actually recently been using it for uniform upgrade kits because I need those for the Black Order uniforms, and I don't have enough because I was silly and I didn't buy them from the Dimension Rift shop. But yeah, and then you can also use it to rank up. You can see you can rank up the warp device, and then the warp device you can send characters on missions to collect XP and to collect some Rift tokens. So what is happening? Basically, what this message is saying is that the Shield Lab Antimatter double sale, that sale that you can purchase, the Antimatter Booster item, that's right over there, this one right here, this is, you actually can see if I try to click it, nothing happens. They've disabled the purchase of this in-game. And in my opinion, covering mobile games for 5+ years now, when they do this, it's because they're getting rid of a feature. They're getting rid of the item that this affects. So what that means is they're going to be getting rid of the antimatter. Now, on the surface, that sounds really good because the antimatter is annoying to collect. Like I said, it fills up every 6 hours. No one, even the most hardcore MFF fan isn't logging in every 6 hours. That's 3 times a day to collect this antimatter, so it always overflows. And it really creates a bottleneck when you're trying to process things, because as you can see, for a lot of these materials, I have 5,600 feathers, so I can click that button so many times. I have 42,000 of those blueprints. I have 43,000 of those component packs. I've got 120,000 gear up kits, but I only have 362,000 antimatter, and I need 70,000. So it really creates this artificial bottleneck to not allow you to actually process these items, and it's kind of annoying, and you don't really need it for anything else after that once you've ranked up the item shop if you want to, and once you've ranked up the warp device if you want to. Also, I will say this just in general about the Shield Lab, it's not very good. So I know there are some kind of, I wouldn't say crucial, but there are some important pieces that the Shield Lab provides. Like there are some cards that you can buy a lot faster in the item shop that you can use to complete card collections to get like 3% more attack speed or yada yada yada. And of course the processor is really great, but I think the processor can exist without the antimatter. Like why do we have to pay this arbitrary cost that includes this weird item that we don't use anywhere else in the game, right? There's so many resources in the game, and this seems like what they're trying to do is they're trying to cut the fat. They're trying to trim the fat. They're trying to get rid of some of these less useful resources that we don't use anywhere else, because you really don't use antimatter anywhere else in the game except here. So they're going to be getting rid of the antimatter sale. Well, they've gotten rid of it, which in my opinion leads me to believe they're going to be getting rid of the antimatter generator altogether. So we're not even going to have to worry about that. In my opinion, what that means is they're probably going to change the process so that you don't need antimatter, which is awesome. And then I don't know what it means. It shouldn't mean anything for the item shop or the warp device. Honestly, I know some people use the warp device and you can get tokens in the warp device to use in the item shop for like refreshing, but it's kind of clunky and it's kind of a waste of gold, it's a waste of gold. So I honestly think the warp device is kind of better off out of the game. I would get rid of the warp device if I were the devs. But we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens. I don't think they're going to axe the Shield Lab entirely. Like, I don't think they're just going to delete the Shield Lab and not do anything with it. I think they know that a pretty large chunk of players still use the Shield Lab for specific things. So maybe they'll just get rid of the parts of the Shield Lab that don't work or aren't used by the vast majority of players. So if you are in the minority that uses one of these things and it goes away, then just know that that was the reason why. I don't think the devs would make any sort of bad decisions. It really doesn't make sense to like upset the players by just deleting something like this out of nowhere. So they're probably doing it, like I said, to trim the fat, kind of get things more organized and less complicated, because there's a lot of things to learn in Marvel Future Fight. So overcomplicating things is not the way you want to go. You want to go the other way. And I think this is a step in that direction. Obviously, I said on the surface at the beginning of this, I know I've said a lot since then, but at the beginning I said on the surface, this seems like a good thing. Of course, I have no idea what's going to happen. So it's a definite possibility that I'm wrong and that things are going to go badly, but there's no sense speculating on what could go wrong or how they're going to mess it up or how they could mess it up, because they've just been crushing it for the past 6 months in the updates for the most part. And so I'm just going to trust them. And you know, I'm going to think that they're going to do the right thing, because they have been doing the right thing for 4, 5, 6 months, depending on what you're talking about and who you ask. So yeah, that's the last thing I wanted to talk about here with the Shield Lab. I don't think very many people bought this at all also. So it could just be that they're getting rid of that. But I do think that there's more to it. But I could not tell you a single player that I've ever met that has bought the Antimatter Booster. So it's very, very low yield in terms of how many players are actually using this content, that I'm sure we can find a better home for it, and then we can maybe get some other new content that's better. I don't know, maybe we'll get a revamped the Shield Lab with new items that you can craft. That'd be dope. Anyways, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of Proxima Tier 3 and the Shield Lab ? The possible changes there. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.